I had a home teacher and his wife who came and visited us, and they told us about a goal they had that when he was 55, he ran his first marathon. And I was 54 at this time, and I thought, yeah, this is pretty good. You know, I'm a nerd. I'm not very good at stuff like this. I thought, that'd be good. So my wife and I, we signed up for the St. George Marathon. We started doing our runs, and we realized that marathon is not that. Marathon is more than endurance. It's just you survive. And our goal was very unique. Our goal was just to survive before they closed. The policemen closed it down to 6 hours. And, you know, we were pretty good. But our home teaching, this family, they were really good friends, and they got us really excited. Like 3 weeks before, you know, we had state conference, and I hate to say it, in the middle of state conference, you were saying, now watch mile 7 because there's a big hill. Anyone done the St. George Marathon here? Imagine, you know, mile 7 is the big hill, and they're saying mile 14, there's this. And they were giving us all this advice. And so we were excited, and so, but interesting, Friday before we left on Friday, and then we ran it on Saturday. She was diagnosed with blood cancer. And so we remembered her in our prayers, and then we went down. And you know how St. George is always on conference weekend, so we had our phones and our earphones trying to listen to conferences you were running your marathon, which didn't work out too well. But we at least tried. But on Monday, when we returned to the office, we found that she passed away. It was that quick. When we found out, it kind of reminded me, we were listening to some of the conference on our way back, and it said, this is from Elder Uchtdorf, he said this, it says, if we devote ourselves to the pursuit of worldly wealth and the glitter of public recognition at the expense of our families and our spiritual world, we will discover soon enough that we've made a fool's bargain. The righteous work we do within the walls of our homes is most sacred. Its benefits are eternal in nature and cannot be delegated. What it caused me to do, it just caused me to think about, what are the things that I'm doing now? Is this the most important thing I could be doing right now? Because we really don't know how long we're going to be on this earth. So I thought that was a good thought. Okay, today's our second day. This is our final day on buying a home. What we'll do is we'll finish kind of the finding the home process that we talked about before. And then what we will do is we will just go a number of questions. Realize if the PowerPoints you see on the Q&A is different than what you saw before, I just rearranged it. So I divided it into sections on working with mortgage brokers, financing and refinancing. Then I made another section on questions about before you apply for the loan. I did another one on mortgage choice, and then the last section on it. So I just organized some of the questions. And then as we go through here, if you guys have questions that we haven't talked about, let's address them. So we'll do that here.
I just have a quick question.
Okay.
Is it tomorrow night that is the...
Money-wise.
Can you say again the details? Or is it online?
I said I would email it to you. You will have it by 5 o'clock today, or I'll open class buildings. So what I'll do. Right? Sometimes I'm working on a whole bunch of different things. So I've got Money-wise. We've got a 2-minute stock pitch competition next Friday, so if anyone wants to do that. Plus we have, if anyone likes private wealth management or asset management, on the 17th at my house at 7 o'clock, I'm bringing in portfolio managers from Wasatch Advisors, Grandeur Peak, Goldman Sachs Asset Management, Goldman Sachs Investment Research, and Ensign Peak Management. So we're bringing in all these portfolio managers and analysts to my house. And then we actually have a class for those who want to do the stock. Whoever wins the stock pitch, they get to present to all the portfolio managers on Saturday. And so I've just got a lot of things on my plate right now. And then I'm working with a number of the other professionals, and we're redoing the PowerPoints for the Money-wise seminars. And so that's it's just a little bit crazy right now. Okay. So where we had talked about before, we talked about knowing your limits. We talked about budgeting, credit scores. The second one, we talked about finding your home. We just talked about this quickly. But realize that things will change over time. Realize what's important to you when you start off. Might be different later on, but it's really important that you figure out what are the most important things in your home. What are the key things? Again, as you work your plan, make sure you understand what you can afford. There's nothing worse than looking at all these houses and you can't afford any of them. So make sure you do that. Again, I like electronic resources. I like Zillow.com. It's not the market value, but it gives you a rough relative value in the areas that you're working with too. Okay, so we got that. And then don't be afraid to take matters into your own hands. Don't be afraid to talk with different people. Don't be afraid, once you know what you can afford, don't be afraid then to start walking. But you'll find the information will come from a lot of different sources. And just be open to different types of sources. We talked about this. Be willing to walk away. When we were looking for a house here in Provo, there was this one house at the end of our street that was really a nice house, and so we made it we thought it was a lowball offer, but we thought it was decent. It was at least competitive, and they came a counter offer, and their counter offer was worse than ours. So we kind of countered their counter offer, and we said, okay, if we don't hear anything by Tuesday at noon, we're walking, and that was my comment to the realtor. And so we had our phones and we were waiting to hear, and we were actually just standing there in front of the house Tuesday at noon and no phone call. So I said, we're done. So we started walking. We went down 2 houses, and there was a house that said for sale by owner. We started looking at that, and that's the house we eventually bought. But walking away was our best tactic too, and it actually opened up to what I consider an even better house. And a lot more reasonable. Home inspections, be aware, you don't want to buy someone else's problems. I share this just to share a home inspection report, but I want you to see the amount of detail. And I know that the amount of detail can change, but a home inspection can help you not buy other people's problems. I've heard horror stories about people moving into a house and not doing a home inspection. And then 3 weeks later, the hot water heater blows and it does $6,000 for the damage. We hear all of those things too. Home inspections don't have to be a lot, but I think they are worth the mark.
So after you get a home inspection, then when there are problems, presumably there will probably be some. What do you?
You use that in the negotiation for the price. Mm-hmm. And you could also do it. What we've done is offers contingent on a home inspection. So if there's things in the home inspection you don't like, it gives you an out. But I like home inspections just because of how much they can't see anything, everything. They can't see in walls. But in our case, they've been able to find a number of things that have been really important. CCRs are covenants, conditions, and restrictions. Make sure you understand those in the area you go in. If you can't live with the CCRs, don't move in. It can be a big side. Right now, we have a homeowners association where I live, and the big deal is we're rewriting the CCRs. And it's amazing. We've only got like 20 families in the area, and it's amazing the differences. And we have people who are very drivers. They really know their stuff. So it's just interesting trying to work through all of this. And then encourage you to get a list of utility costs. Those are all the costs that go into this. And if the utility costs are more than you expect to pay, look for something else that may be a little bit more efficient, things like that. And then negotiate the price. Realize that most things on your housing are negotiable. Closing costs. Even your mortgage, your interest rates and points, all of that stuff is negotiable. And also realize that all of these things, as part of the negotiating process, you can. They're there. Don't be afraid to haggle. Okay. The third step that we haven't, this is kind of where we finish, is really to finance and fund the loan. You need to figure out your financing and make sure you fulfill all the covenants so that they can fund the loan. Number one, is you really need to understand the lending process. So we assume you found a home, suits your lifestyle and budget, you've used a realtor. The realtor will refer you to a mortgage broker. Do you have to use that mortgage broker? No. Ideally what you do is you go with 3 or 4 different mortgage brokers. One of them they'll pull your credit, they'll determine your needs, they'll try to find lenders among the competition that will give you the best rate. And then each lender has a unique program. We talked about those deal sheets. There's probably 30 different loans with 30 different interest rates and points and fees and things like that. And it's your responsibility to figure out which of those would be best for you. The broker will recommend the best loan to you. And ideally what you should do is you should make the final decision after you compare loans from different brokers. Ideally what you do is, we'll talk about that, is you find the best loan, then you take it to the broker you like the best, and you say, if you can beat this by 1/8 of a point, I'll go with you. Then the lender takes the loan package, structures the loans. They try to get any additional information they need to close the deal. Title, escrow, and lender work together. Lender sends out the documents for signing, and then audits the documents, verifies the conditions, and funds the loans. Okay.
So you talked about using, getting different mortgage brokers to sort of compete, right? Do you also, when you get pre-approved, do you want to get pre-approved from multiple mortgage brokers?
Yeah, so that's what happens. They'll need something to pull your credit to make sure you.
Well, I'm saying, you said to get the pre-approved before you even.
Right. You only need to get pre-approved with one, because that way you at least know what
Yeah.
the limits are. Here's a question: if you're working with 3 or 4 mortgage brokers and needs to pull your credit, does that hurt your credit score?
No.
Go ahead, Don.
I thought it was all in the same short time frame.
That had less.
Right. So here's what happens: is once the first person pulls it for a mortgage loan, there's a 45-day window. You can have a number of different mortgage brokers pulling your credit, and it will all be counted as a single pull. You can't remember if it's 45 days or 90 days, but after that period is over, then it's considered a second pull. So just make sure make sure that you're make sure that you understand the process.
And that's only for a mortgage. You wouldn't
Yeah.
do like a mortgage or credit card.
It may be for other types. I just know it's done as far as in the mortgage process. Okay, here's just a chart that I wanted you to understand, which is the underwriting process. This is kind of the funding process. Realize what the mortgage broker does is all he does is he brings you and the lender together. After he's brought you two together, does he do anything else for you? So realize we want we want them to make an okay profit, but after that, the key is that's all they do is they bring you together. Notice what the lender does is he puts similar loans together, he kind of puts them together, and he sells them to an issuer, and the issuer puts them together and sells them as securities. So the lender is not going to hold on to your loan. They may hold on to it for about a day or two, and then they sell it. And then what they do is they'll sell it to the issuer, then they'll get their money back, and then they can continue lending. Realize too, when you make your payments, do you make those to the lender? The answer is no, you make those to an issuer, the servicer, who actually sends the money out to the investors too. So my point here is just to understand that the only purpose of the mortgage broker is just to bring you two together. Once that's done and you have your loan, there's nothing else there. So what we should try to do is minimize, we want them to make a fair profit, but only that. So second thing we want to do is we want to use multiple lenders. Ideally what you want to do is talk with your friends who've gone through this process before. Who are the people they like? And once you find some of those, then I would encourage you to add them to your list of mortgage brokers. You want to get your good faith estimates from each of the lender. This is not a summary, but this is an actual good faith estimate from each one. And then what you can do is you can kind of compare the good faith estimates from each lender. Next, you want to calculate your effective interest rate. So the question is, how can you determine if you've got the best loan? And that is if you've got the lowest effective interest rate among the borrowers. And that takes into account how long you're going to be in a home. It takes into account your points and your fees. If you're not going to be in a home very long, do you want to pay points?
No.
No, why not?
You won't make up the cost.
Yeah, you're not going to be able to spread them out over a lot of years. So ideally, if you could get the lowest rate with the fewest number of points, that's kind of what we're searching for. And then you negotiate. Key now is to find the lowest rate. Once you've figured you've got multiple offers from lenders, then you've got bargaining power. Realize you only have to pay if they'll only make money if they do the loan. If you do the loan with them. So now what you do is find your lowest cost in terms of your APR and your points. Then what you do is you go to your favorite lender and you say, you know what, I'm really close to doing this. If you can come off 1/8% on the interest rate, I'll do it with you.
So that be through the broker that you would have that conversation?
Yes. So this is the person who's actually making the decision there. And if you can do that, you can make a plus. And realize all of this is negotiation.
So do you ever have direct contact with the lender?
No. Kind of like, you know, when you work with a house, you rarely have direct contact with the owner of the house. It's all through your real estate broker. And then the final step is really just enjoy homeownership. Encourage you people, realize it'll take 1 to 2% of the value of the home each year just to keep it up. You know, and we find that out too, even though our house is paid for, it's just expensive just to do upkeep. The comment that a house is a hole in the middle of the land that you pour money into is probably a pretty good description. So be wise. My wife wanted me to put up there an annual cleaning a couple of times a year can be helpful. When we sold our house in Walnut Creek, they couldn't believe that we had 7 kids there. Not that we're that clean, but we had someone come once a week for a few hours to help my wife, and it made a lot of difference. So encourage you to do that. Enjoy your home, but keep the value of the home up. Okay, questions on finding the home. Again, it's the key thing here is there's lots of different ways to find that home. And it will take multiple ways to do that.
You talked about how you had bought a home that was for sale by owner. A lot of times, at least what I've kind of heard, is that if you have a realtor, then they're often hesitant to show you for sale by owner homes because then they're not going to be able to get a cut of the commission.
That's true.
So how do you go about finding, things like that? Or
so what we did on this house, it was a for sale by owner, and then with our realtor who had taken us around, we agreed with him that we would pay him 1% just to do the paperwork. So he still got some of the work there. So that's generally what I would do. So at least he's still making some things there. But be careful with your realtors too. Again, I told you the story of our realtor in Walnut Creek. He only showed us houses in his ward. We said, thank you, we appreciate the vote of confidence, but we really like to buy things a little closer. And big things when you work in places like San Francisco and things like that, figure out what your commute was. My wife and I, we sat and we thought, what's the maximum commute I want? And what we noticed is you're going from San Francisco into the East Bay, there's a 680-24 split, and that's where all of the traffic got. It just got really slow there. And so we figured out if we just take the one exit before then, and we looked in those areas there, we gave ourselves about a 3 square mile area to look at. And then when we came in, it just wasn't bad. I could always miss that. And it was still an hour drive one way during rush hour, but it still wasn't that bad. In the mornings at 5 in the morning, it wasn't too bad. So think through the issue. Think through the issues. Okay. So what I've got planned now is just a number of questions that people have come up with. Do we have any questions here? Do you have any questions you'd like to discuss in class before I go through the ones? The ones that I think are important that we go through is when do you refinance? How do brokers make money? Kind of the first 6 or 8 questions on the PowerPoints. You want to do those first, and then if there's any other questions?
Well, I just had a question about a down payment on a home.
Okay.
Does that affects? Because I know there's certain fees if you don't have like the 20%
Right.
down payment. Is
So
that
now
right?
you have private mortgage insurance. So the question is,
How
what
does that
size of
work?
a down payment do you want?
Yeah.
Ideally, if you can put the 20% down, that private mortgage insurance can be $100 to $300 a month. So if you put that 20% down, that's quite a bit of savings there. Other questions before we? Joe?
Is there like a right proportion of, say, like if you make this amount of money a year, then you could you should buy a house for this much.
I would use those front and back end ratios that we talked about on Monday, because, so your principal insurance, property taxes, and property insurance should be less than 28% of your gross income. And then if you add in your long-term debts, it should be less than 36. I think those are good guidelines. In the recent years, people have moved those guidelines up to closer to 45 or 50, some as high as 50%, but I think it's a recipe for disaster. So if you can keep those down within the front and back end ratio limits, I think you'll be a lot. I don't think you will be sad that you did. So here's how I kind of divided these questions. So brokers, financing, and refinancing. Then questions before you apply for a mortgage. Sorry. And then questions on housing choice, timing, and other ones. Sorry, I didn't. Okay, how do mortgage brokers get paid? Thoughts?
When they try to get the highest interest rate above the required amount.
So they'll make, the way it's worked here, so they're paid on 3 ways. Number 1, origination fees. Number 2, discount points. So realize that when you pay 1 or 2 discount points, that goes to the mortgage broker as well. And what a lot of people don't realize is there's a back-end bonus. So if the lender has a required rate of 3% and the broker brings him a mortgage that's fully conforming of 3.25%, it's 25 basis points higher than he was expecting. So the lender will give a bonus, a back-end bonus, to the mortgage broker. So ideally what we want to do as consumers, we want to minimize the interest rate and the discount points we pay, and which will also likely reduce that back-end bonus as well. So we want to give them a fair profit, but nothing beyond that. So that comes to the question. The next question is, how do you know what the lender's required rate of return is? So what they do is, will they buy a loan that's less than the required rate of return? The answer is no. So here's the thought. Broker's earnings, origination fees, discount points, and back-end bonus. Why don't we ask a question? What's the lowest rate that will allow you to buy down to? So they might say, okay, 3 3/4 with 1 point, 3.5 with 2 points, 3.25 with 3 points. Could that be a proxy for what the lender's required rate is? They say, oh, we can't take you any farther. So if you're talking with 3 or 4 different lenders, you might have a good idea. Okay, roughly the interest rate right now is about 3%. That's what they're looking at. And if they're looking at 3%, then how do we find out if we've done a good job there? And so it'll know, okay, we should be able to bring it down, and hopefully we can bring it down closer to that rate and reduce the number of points. Ideally what we want to do is we'll use this information to get the best deal on our loan. So the question 3 is, how do I get the best deal with mortgage brokers? Which is kind of the process. And accountability here. Here's some ideas. Number 1, work with a number of brokers. You'll get a better deal if you've got, it'll give you a reference rate with different brokers. The brokers will not like that, but you'll get a much lower rate. Number 2, research the reputation and background of potential brokers. Again, I encourage you to talk with your friends, people who have bought a house in the neighborhood in the recent past. So work with those. The reputation grapevine is pretty good. 3, beware of bait and switch routines. A lot of times people will say, well, we'll give you 3.5%, and then you'll come up time to do that, and 3.5%, they say, well, the interest rates went up, it's 3 3/4%. So a couple of things you need to do. Hold them accountable for their closing costs by making sure you get a good faith estimates. And then number 2, hold them accountable for the interest rate they promised. Tell them you'd like to see their rate lock commitment sheet. And if they ask you what that is, they go someplace else. But what it is, it's a sheet that says that they've locked in this interest rate, usually for a certain number of days. No rate lock sheet indicates they have not yet locked in the loan. Beware of lenders who advertise no closing costs or no origination fees. Generally, they'll either raise the rates or they'll call it a processing fee or add the cost of the principal loan. Just make sure you read through the small print. And then if your lender promises a short turnaround, make sure that the underwriter's in the same state. A lot of times they'll have the underwriter in the same building too. And so if it's out-of-state underwriting, it can be a lot more time-consuming. Okay, so questions on how it works with the mortgage brokers. Again, if we understand that process, we can make better decisions. Okay, questions on how to refinance. How do you know when to refinance? Right.
When interest rates are lower than what you're paying now and you think it's the lowest they're going to be?
Well, so is it just interest rates? Are there other factors? But that's a good point. When interest rates are lower, I used to hear it said, well, if interest rates are 3% lower than yours, you should refinance it. Which are rules of thumb?
Doesn't it cost you money to refinance?
It
You
does.
can calculate that in.
So it's both what Mariah said and Mackenzie said here too. So it's both lower interest rates and also the fees here. So what we want to do is we want to calculate how much, what are they before refinancing? What are our costs and our fees? What are they afterwards? And we can kind of compare those costs. About 3 years ago, it was September, and September's always crazy with new classes. About 3 weeks into the semester, I finally got around to going through my voicemails. And I got this voicemail and said, hello, Brother Sudweeks, this is such and such. I said, I had someone come to me and they want me to refinance my home, and I'm not sure whether to do it. He kind of gave me the information. He says, can you give me a call back? Tell me what you think. And it's just started me thinking, and I actually added it on this question. And I came up with a couple of things. I came up with a break-even method, because that's kind of you take your savings, take your costs, divided by your savings each month. And then I thought about the total cost method. And then I went and talked with Barrett Slade, and he brought me onto the IRR method too, which was a time value money calculation. So about 3 weeks later, after I got that, went through my analysis, I figured it out, and I called them up, and I said, well, and it wasn't a very good deal. And generally what happens when people are telling people to refinance, they want you to say you've already paid 10 years, you got 20 years left, and then they'll have you refinance into another 30 years. So instead of paying your loan off after 30 years, you're taking 40 and 50 years to pay it off. So we always make sure when you refinance, your calculation is based on the same amount of time remaining on your loan. But I went through the analysis and it wasn't a big deal. I called them up and I said, well, I apologize for getting back to you so late, but hopefully you didn't do the deal. And he says, yeah, you're right, I didn't. He says, it just didn't feel good, and so I didn't do it. And then I kind of went through the process and explained what we do. But here's what we want to do. So we've got 4 calculations. One is, what are your monthly principal and interest costs now before the refinance? What are your refinance principal and interest costs? And what Mariah's point here is because the interest rates will be lower, that should be lower as well. The third is just A minus B, which is your savings. And the fourth one, which is Mackenzie's comment, which is total new fees, costs, origination fees, discount fees, other fees. And if there's any prepayment penalties too, you need to take those into account. So, here's just a note here. Costs that are the same for both loans, such as escrow reserve accounts, you don't have to use them in the calculations because they'll be the same. So, basically, if you want to determine whether refinancing it makes sense or not, what you would do is you'd look at 3 calculations: your internal rate of return, your break-even, and also your total cost analysis. If those make sense, then you do it. If only one calculation makes sense, I'd probably not do that. So again, here's IRR. We're all familiar with this from our financing classes. Generally, what are we doing is we're calculating our savings. So we're taking our costs. What are our costs that we have to do? And so that will be your present value, negative present value. And then what are your savings? And then for the number of periods, then you can calculate an IRR on that. And again, the caution is set the number of months on the new loan equal to the remaining on the old loan. Because you'll always have lower costs if you spread it out over 10 more years or 15 more. So again, here's your set your present value minus your low costs. Payment equals your savings, and is your number of months remaining in the loan, and you solve for your IRR. The thesis here is if your IRR is greater than your risk-free rate, refinance. What is our risk-free rate?
Use your current interest rate on mortgage.
Yeah, you can use current interest rate on mortgages. I'd probably take what on current mortgages are, and I'd probably add 2 or 3%. You know, for right now, I'd probably do 7 or 8%. Something like give me a backdrop and give me a little bit of room here. Break-even analysis kind of similar. What we do is we just calculate all of our costs of the new loan divided by our savings. And what that'll do is that'll give how many months it's going to take us to pay off that loan. Generally, if it's less than 4 years, it's probably a good idea. 5 to 7 years, I might consider it. Anything beyond 7 years, I'm probably not, just because there's a good chance you're going to move in 7 years. And then total cost analysis, all we're doing here is let's calculate what we pay right now without the refinance. Let's calculate what we'll pay with the refinance plus all the additional refinance costs. And if we save some money, we're doing good. And if we don't, then we'll know not to do it. And in this case here, the refinance cost, that he would actually be paying more. The gentleman would actually be paying more with the refinance had he done the refinance here. Okay, let's do a case. So he's looking at 2 loans. He's had the first one for 10 years. He owes $125,000. He's looking to refinance. He's found a 20-year 5.25 loan with originations of fees of $1,500 and 25 and other fees. His risk-free rate is 8%. Here's the question: if he's going to refinance, if he needs if he owes $125,000 and he pays points, are we going to have to add those points on the end of the loan? So is the value of the loan going to have to be more than the $125,500? The answer is yes. So let's calculate the 3 types of refinance analysis. Actually, I'm just going to... I take it on this one because it's not points, it's just fees. We don't have to add that. The good news is we have a learning tool for you anyway. It's probably going to be easier for those if you do the break-even and total cost analysis first. But it doesn't matter. Only take a couple more minutes. Someone want to take me through the IRR analysis? You're going to volunteer for your IRR, break even, and total cost? Clark's saying yes.
I'll give it a shot.
Okay.
Do IRR.
Okay, who wants to do break-even analysis? Okay. Jordan, how about total cost analysis? The good news is you guys can page forward on the PowerPoints and see the answers. Okay, we'll let Alec do that in the back. Okay. Okay, so let's kind of just build the pieces to it. Build the pieces to the analysis. So, cost for the new loan, $4,000. Are we comfortable with that? Then monthly savings, old versus new. So Clark, what was your cost of the first loan?
I just did it on an annual.
Okay, that's fine.
It was about 10,900, I think.
Okay. And what was the savings? I'd say. So we'll just use my numbers here if you don't mind.
That's fine.
So basically $900 on the old loan. What was it on the new loan? $845. So our savings was $53.46. So how did you set that up next?
So I mean, I had an annual number that was around 600, so 12
Okay.
times that. But I set that as my payment,
Okay.
and then I had 20 years of certainty he's going to keep it for the rest of, or 240
Okay.
keeping it monthly.
So your payment is your minus your present value. Those are funds that have to go out now. Your payment is what you would save now, and is your number of months. And what interest rate did you get?
Like 14.5. Yeah.
Okay, so we're good. And so what it gives you is it's a monthly IRR. We multiply it by 12 to give us our annual payment. So around 15%. Is that greater than our risk-free rate? Okay, good. Stuart, on this one, break-even analysis.
Right, so you're just gonna take the same 4,000 in costs and then the difference in the monthly payments, and you divide the costs by the monthly savings.
Okay, so 4,000 divided by 50/46. So basically 75 months or about 6 years. Would you do it?
I mean, the slide says it's not a great payback period, but it depends, I guess.
Yeah, it depends on how long you expect to be in the home.
Right.
Okay, Alec, yours on the total cost?
Total cost, first you'll take your payments that you calculated for
Okay.
the two different loans,
Okay, here's our 208 plus our 215, okay?
and you multiply that monthly payment by how many more payments you expect, so
Okay.
that's 20 years. So there you got 2003 versus the 2015.
Okay.
But for the new loan, you need to add in the additional cost of the loan,
Okay.
$4,000. And then just compare the two.
Okay, so 207 versus 215. Does this take into account time value of money? It doesn't. Okay. But the nice thing about, so basically you would save around $9,000. So generally you've got a decent savings, and I also look at 9,000 as a percent of 210, so you're about 5%. So that might be good. IRR says would do it. The break-even analysis is a little uncertain, but 2 of the 3, and so I'd probably do it. Let's show you a fun tab in this. What we've got here is we've got Learning Tool 19, which is this spreadsheet here. So we said, okay, here's our $150,000 loan, 6% for 360 months. Our payment $899, which is what we saw earlier. So we owed $125,529. Do those numbers look good? Okay, so months remaining to pay on the loan was 240. So what we did that here. So we calculate our internal rate of return. We can put our fees in here, $4,000. Notice it calculates here's our outflows. Here's our savings of $53.46 every month. It gives us an IRR of 15.3%. So generally we'd say, yes, let's do that. Break-even analysis, here's what we owe on the old loan. We refinance. Here's our payments. So again, our new fees and costs divided by our savings gives us our 6.24 months, which is very similar to what we used before. And again, our total cost analysis. Here's our fees. Our $215,838 is what we paid before. $207, what we'll pay now, and the difference is here $88.30. And so what we've got here is, yes, we would do it here. Likely here, yes, we would do it. And the nice thing too is, again, let's see. You can put different things here. Okay, 5,000 in fees, it brings it back to 11.5. Could we use a goal seek to say what's the maximum we'd be willing in fees to reach our 8%? So we'd come over here to data, what if analysis, goal seek. We want to set this to 8% by changing our fees here. So if our required rate of return was 8%, we could actually pay up to about $6,300. I wouldn't want to do that. But if we were in the process of thinking about refinancing, what I would probably do is I'd actually go a little different. I'd do that same what if analysis, goal seek, set that. I would say, let's set it to 20% by changing this. And I'd actually come to them and say, you know what, I'd be happy to do this at this rate. However, it's not giving me the return I need. If you could give me fees of $31.41, I would do it. So, but you see what we're doing? Is we're using these tools and then we're using negotiating techniques. So if he does this, what we've just done, we say $750. How much time did we spend in the calculation? About 3 minutes. So you save $750 over 3 minutes. That's a pretty good savings per hour, especially if we can continue it. Okay, questions on when we should refinance and how to do that analysis. So that brings us to our next one.
Okay, can I ask a question?
Sure.
So I know we talked about like when interest rates are low and when fees are low, but generally like is that something you would just monitor like every year, kind of going along, take a look at it, or what triggers you to start looking at that?
So what I'd probably do is I'd find a rough estimate of what costs are. Maybe it'll cost you $5,000. And we can actually back into how much would interest rates have to fall to make up for that $5,000. So I think a good rule of thumb is probably 3/8 of the basis points is a good starting point. I haven't done the analysis, but the tools are. Okay, how about the question on buying down a loan? We all know what buying down is, right? So the broker comes and says, okay, we'll offer you 4% right now. But if you give me 1 point, $1,500 in fees, I will give you 3.75%. Or if you'll give me 2 points in the same fees, I'll give you 3.5%. So how do we know when it's a good idea to buy down or not? Is it the same analysis? We could. Again, IRR, calculate all costs for the new loan like we just did. But you calculate your monthly savings, determine the number of months. So we can calculate our IRR there. Again, time value of money. And then the second one is break-even analysis, kind of the same things. Same point here. So here's another problem. Well, here's a question. The principle on effective home buying is you need to be wise in your spending. Realize $1 less that you spend. When you borrow $1 more, remember you're not paying back just $1. But you may be paying back $1.50 or $1.70 or $2. So just some questions you ask. Will you be refinancing soon? If so, there may be some better uses for your money. It may include paying down higher rate debt, maybe for saving for retirement and tax eliminated or tax deferred accounts, maybe building your emergency fund. But be wise in this and don't be afraid to negotiate with people. All they can do is tell you no. And a student came into my office and they had some charges on their accounts. We said, why don't we just call them up and see if they'll take them out? So in 10 minutes, we called them up and they took $70 off their accounts. let's see, $70, 10 minutes. So that's $420 an hour that we saved. And if they said no, we'd still be at the same place we were before. So don't be afraid to talk about it. Don't be afraid to talk and to ask. Okay, let's for this one, he's considering this loan B. So 6% with one origination point. You can buy it down to 5.5% with one additional buy down point. And notice that once we buy that additional buy down point, we have to borrow more to cover those costs. So let's check and see, would you do it or not? Assuming he'll take one of those loans, which one should he take? Grab your calculators. Are these the type of problems you guys will encounter once you graduate? Yeah. Could we also do a total cost analysis on this? The answer is yes. Okay. And remember those steps. Calculate the payments before buying down. Calculate the payments after buying down. Calculate the additional costs. And from those you can calculate your IRR and your breaking point. Can I get a volunteer for the IRR calculation? A lot of people smiling. Put their heads down. And then went for the break even. Let Mark and Eric do IRR.
We're discussing that.
Oh, okay. But you don't have a computer there in front of you. I'll let someone else. By the way, we've got a quiz on Monday. We'll have a health section on Friday for on the help section, we'll kind of go through kind of the key points. But we'll also go through the tools to see if you guys have any questions on using the tools. It'll be at 1 o'clock and I'll send it over. But I also encourage you, tomorrow is our Money Wise presentations. So I encourage you to come to that too if you have the time. So we're going to take you through this. You have a volunteer?
Take a stab at it.
Okay, good.
So we find the present value of both. I mean the payment for both.
Okay,
The A and the B.
so here is
Yeah, which is
payment
1
for A and B. Okay,
Yeah, and then you take the difference of those two,
okay.
which would be 2506. Then this is where did you calculate for the IRR just
Right, so
over
your
25 as the payments and then just present value 0?
present value is your cost.
Oh,
So your present value is cost of discount points to, so we have to add that on there. But IRR would be your 2551, that's your discount points. Your payment is 25, solve for your I, and your IRR is about 11%. It's higher than this 8%, so we do it here. It's higher than that. So let's do the second one. How about,
Can you explain why it's the 25, that last step?
okay, so what we have to do, so
The present
cost of our
value.
discount points is 2% times your 22,551. And then so that's basically 5,000. But the first loan had costs of 2,500 as well. So we're doing the difference between those two. So it's an incremental cost. Does that make sense?
It makes sense, but that doesn't make sense. That makes sense.
So I think where I'm getting caught up is why does it increase the amount of the loan when they increase the loan?
Because do you get to keep that money or not? You don't. So you really have to come up with 247.5 because of the increase in points. If you still do your loan at 247.5, you'll only receive about significantly less. We could actually use a goal sheet to come up with that too.
So on the loan A, they had 1 point. But
Yes, 1
they
point.
got 2.75, so you get loan 250, but 2,500.
Right, so 2,500 was for that 1 point.
Okay. And then for loan B, 2 points instead, they just added the.
Right, so we subtracted out what we would have for the first one. And
When you make a down payment, is that like how do the points go there? Like, is it like if I pay 20% of 2,500, which is
Okay.
50,000?
yeah, so then your loan would not be 250,000, your loan would be 200,000. So the down payment brings the value of the loan down.
Right. So what I'm asking is, does it go against the points too?
Right, so your points would be, if your loan, you have $250,000 loan, you got 50,000 down payment, your new loan amount would be 200,000, and your points would be not against the 250, but the 200,000. Am I answering the right question? Sometimes I think so.
What I don't understand is, what are the points calculated from? I thought it was from the loan amount.
Right.
And I guess to me it doesn't make sense.
So it's calculated against the loan amount. If you pay a down payment, the loan amount.
Well, no, not that part.
Okay.
I'm still back here, because when I figured out like the percentage points, it was 2,500 for the first, and then 5,000 for the second, but those values are not reflected.
So what the fees we're paying on the first one was that 2,500. So on this one, what we're trying to do is we're trying to say, what's the incremental cost?
But that would be 2,500, not 25,501.
Well, remember that your loan, you have to borrow more because you have to borrow more on the loan because those points are staying with the lender. So you're actually having to take out more of a loan because you're paying more in costs.
Yeah, but that I understand the concept, but not getting the amount.
Okay, you have.
Because that doesn't make sense to me, because it's only, you're adding 2,500 to the loan. Not 25, where's the extra $51.25?
So 2% times 252, 551, you get that 5,051. And then I just subtracted that 25 from loan A, which would give me my 25. Let's show this spreadsheet, and maybe that will help it out here. So here's the spreadsheet that we have. Now we're going to come over here buying down points. Again, this one is 250,000 at 6% at 360. Loan 2 is actually what we say 252.
But why is it 252?
Let's actually
So if you times that by 2.98, you get this 247.
252.
Why isn't it 250 either way? Why is it 250?
You have to pay points on.
Okay. Okay. Sure. So So let's.
Okay, so Brian, let me know if this is what you're thinking, and this is what you're let me know if this is right.
Okay.
So the first loan, loan A, the amount is for 250,000, but we have to pay points for the fees of 2,500. The amount we actually receive is that 24/7. 500. Whereas loan B, the reason they have to raise it is because they made the total amount of the loan
252,
252,
551
551, and 2% of that
is your 5051.
5051. So that when you take the difference, I can check the mark. You still get the 247,500. So the reason they added that 51 is so that when you take out 2%, you still end up getting the same amount. It just lowers.
So why is the original loan for 247 instead of 2,900?
No, the original loan is 250,000 with 1 point. 247.5 is what you receive.
So this is at 1%.
Right.
And this is 1% of this. This is 2%.
So what we did is we assume
this.
all of the costs are coming out of the loan. But does that make a little more sense?
I'm just curious at why, like, you get 247 as a loan instead of 250 on top.
Because the amount that the broker gets the points, or the broker gets the points, you don't see them. So what we could have done is we could have done. What we're doing in this problem, we're assuming just that the value of the house is 247. So maybe that's what we should say.
Okay.
Yeah. So yeah.
We did it kind of another way, so we said like this is the value of the home,
Right.
and then you have the 99%, you
Yeah.
throw in points, so you have to make up that difference.
Yeah.
Whereas in this problem, we're talking about how we need to end up.
And maybe that's what we should do, is we write the problem and say you need 240, the value of the home is 247,000. So in order to do that, okay, we'll make that change.
Okay, sorry.
But so here's the problem here, just to see how it works. Again, 250, 6%, 360. Here we're 252. Again, the amount that we want to receive is exactly the same. Notice our monthly savings is $64.92. Again, our IRR is 15.3%. And on this one, 6.4, basically 6.5 years. So in that case, you could actually make a decision of whether you wanted to do it or not. Again, too, if you, we could actually go through here. Our IRR is 8%. What happened if we did a goal seek? We would have said, okay, let's set our IRR. Let's say we want that to be 20%. How many points would we be willing to buy? So if we wanted to set our IRR to 20%, we could go back to the broker and say, you know what, this is still not good enough for me. If you could do that with 1.54 points, it would make it in my required grade. So it gives you some negotiating. Yes?
So before we used the effective interest rate to compare loans, and now we're using this IRR with the required rate of return.
Right, so now we're doing, before we were trying to decide which loan was best. Now we're deciding whether we refinance or whether we're willing to pay another buy-down point. The buy-down point would also tell you the same thing too. This is kind of another way of getting at the same problem.
I guess you're using a different, so
Different
comparing the effective interest rate, you're effectively using the rate of your home as the discount rate.
Right.
Whereas here we're using a percent.
Right, so we're using the percent. Again, it's a different tool in your toolbox to help you to make the decision. Mackenzie?
So if you go to a broker and you start talking like this, you're just gonna knock their socks off, or they're just gonna... I can just imagine that no one comes in and says like, yeah, I don't know if that meets my internal rate of return. Like,
Or they
this
come
is,
in
like,
and they'll
super
say,
high.
oh, you've had Sudweeks class, haven't you? And it's kind of the same thing, when I went into the time, trying to sell me with a timeshare and I had my HB 12C in my pocket. When they found out I was a finance professor and had my HB 12C, when I said I wasn't interested, they let me go. So, it's just, the point here is what am I trying to do here in this class? I'm not trying to tell you that A is it's always going to be better to buy down. I'm trying to give you the tools so you can make the decisions. And then that's what we want to do. And again, using some of these tools and some of the tools and these goals, I think is an important tool. Actually, my son-in-law, who's a mortgage broker, he took this class. So that's where I got a lot of this stuff from. But I encourage you to think through the issues. Just a couple other questions on mortgage brokers, financing and refinancing. How is it easy to refinance a home with an interest-only loan? As long as it basically refinances in the same way. If you follow the steps as you would be refinancing a traditional mortgage, you realize every time you refinance there's a lot of cost. How about this one? If a person's still upside down in their mortgage, can they still refinance? You know what it means when you're upside down? When you're upside down, it means you owe more than the home is worth. So what do you think? Can you still refinance?
Yeah.
Kind of depends. The MBA answer. If the entire mortgage is a first mortgage, then the answer is no. Or the answer would be difficult. There may be some government programs that allow you to do that. However, if there's both a first and a second, let's say this person took out a loan and then later they took out a loan to pay off some credit cards. If there's both a first and a second, and the value of the first is less than the market value of the home, then the answer is yes. Why is that? Who has first claim on the home? The first mortgage or the second? The first mortgage. So the first mortgage will be made whole first before any of the second mortgage will be paid. So if the first mortgage is significantly less, then you could refinance the first. Because it has claim on the home. So, is all of this stuff, will it make a difference? Let me share a note from a previous student. It says, Professor Sudweeks, I wanted to give you an update and tell you a story. I graduated in December and got a job working at Honeywell in Phoenix. I've been pretty diligent in trying to apply what I learned in your class, and I've been very grateful for the things that you taught me. My wife and I decided we wanted to build a home, which is turning out fairly well so far. The financing, on the other hand, has been an interesting story, and I would have been completely lost without the things I learned from you. Here's the story. Our builder provides a $5,000 incentive for closing costs if we use their preferred lender. So when we signed the initial paperwork to start the building process, the salesman called the preferred lender to come meet with us that same day so we could get us pre-qualified. And notice, not pre-approved. She gave us a quote of $7,500 for closing costs and prepays, which meant that we would have to pay $2,500 out of pocket at closing. Seemed a little bit high to me, but hey, what do I know? Lesson one, I had to look elsewhere to get some comparisons. You see why now we tell you to multiple brokers. A friend referred me to another lender who quoted me $3,500. He wasn't a preferred lender, so I would end up paying the full $3,500. I really like this lender. He's an LDS guy and came highly recommended from a good friend of mine. I felt like I could trust him, which apparently is important to me. Out of curiosity, I went back to the builder and asked if they would be willing to pay at least half of the closing costs if I chose not to use their preferred lender. Unfortunately, I was out of bargaining power by that time and they declined. But at least he was willing to ask. At the end of my conversation with the builder, the salesman asked if I had looked into the other 2 preferred lenders that they recommend. Obviously, I hadn't done this, and I didn't know they existed. The second preferred lender quoted me $5,600. At this point, I decided that I refused to pay a dime of closing costs. The third lender quoted me $4,200, and he would use the remaining $800 to pay down the rate. I felt great about the third lender. Everything seemed to be coming together extremely well. I proceeded to get him all the information he needed to get the approval process started. Once approved, which didn't take long, he insisted that we move quickly because rates were so volatile. I agreed and said, great, send me the good faith estimate, we'll go from here. Instead of a good faith estimate, he sent me a loan fee approximation worksheet that explicitly states in the fine print that it is not a GFE and the fees were subject to change. Bewildered, I shot back and asked him why he had sent me the approximation worksheet instead of a good faith estimate. His response was, I can't send you a GFE until we lock in the rate and turn this into a real loan. That was a month ago, and I haven't talked to the guy since. Before your class, I didn't even know what a GFE was, let alone the lenders were required to give me one. When he told me he couldn't give me one, 35 red flags went up in my face, and he lost my business entirely. After the GFE incident, I went back to the second lender I told you about, the one who's not a preferred lender. He was always up front with me, and if it weren't for the builder paying closing costs, I would have gone with him. I told him the same story I'm telling you, and he decided to call the builder and see if he could be their 4th preferred lender. Less than 24 hours passed, and he is now officially a preferred lender. I haven't locked in quite yet, but probably will this week. I'm now looking at blank rate with 0 closing costs, and I have a lender that I feel comfortable with. Well on my way to saving that $1 million. Thank you for what you do. Don't remember much of anything from the bulk of the courses I took at BYU, but I remember yours. Okay, is there value in the thing for these? And the answer is yes. Okay, let's take a couple of minutes. We'll pull up our digital dialogue box and Learning Suite, or pull up your notes. What are the takeaways from today's class? That makes a little more sense.
Well, if you could like receive the money with the house, because like knowing that the 24/7 is the house, that would be. Oh yes, gotcha. You put at the bottom there. Okay, that makes sense. You put at the bottom. Sorry. Yeah. Oh, thanks.
Let's share a few thoughts. Cassie, what were your takeaways?
I just didn't realize like how much of a like time commitment and like so much research goes into whatever you want to make, but it would be so worth it because for situations like this.
It's just an example of how knowledge is power. You know, you're going to get offers, and you need to get multiple offers. You don't know whether they're good or not unless you do these types of analysis.
So you have to do the analysis to be able to find that one.
One of my takeaways is just that, like that story you shared, email from your student, you need to ask for a good faith estimate sheet. Because sometimes you find out about a good deal, it might really be too good.
So we have to ask. Notice that we also have to compare. It gives us a baseline. So going with multiple lenders. Adam, what do you take away?
I was, had the same thought as the others. It's just a long process that you need to kind of know the whole process before you go into it, or you could get taken advantage of.
Do you think we've done okay at least giving you a rough idea of the process?
Definitely.
Let's see. Lindsay, what were your takeaways from today?
Again, kind of similar, but not be afraid to ask what you're looking for and shop around for that. Because, I mean, buying your first home, it's going to be scary. It's the first time you've done it, and it's a big purchase and everything, but it doesn't mean you've taken advantage of.
Any other people like to share? Pick on people, so. McKinsey.
Don't be pressured into anything.
Yeah, don't be pressured. You know, you can always walk away. Let's do one more.
My takeaway is just go and reread this all and make sure I get it all. Yeah, it's like there's a ton, and so I was like, oh, like, there's some things I don't quite get, so I just need to make sure I do it again so I get it all.
And I'm not sure how to write this. I don't have a chapter on what we talked about today. But today we've talked about some good stuff. And so hopefully by rearranging it, maybe I'll be able to put it into a chapter. But let me just share a few of my takeaways from today. Number one, you must understand the rules of the game. Finding, financing, and funding. Only then can you expect to win. Only then can you reduce your costs. Number two, always keep your principles in mind. You know, even though following the principles won't cause you to make mistakes, you'll still make mistakes, but they'll be a lot cheaper mistakes, and they'll do a lot better on the long run. And number three, you know, you need to keep life in perspective. Always do the important things first, because we never know how long life's going to be. Thanks, everybody. So.